Sometimes when I'm pinning a quilt on, I'll just pull this quilt top leader all the way up. See, as I'm pinning, I'll just lay it right up on top, because since I have my quilt back on here already and I laid this batting on here, that way I can have like a little surface, so it's almost like having a table to work off of. And so I have my back pinned to the take-up rail leader, but I'll just lay my batting here, and then I'm pinning my quilt top to the leader, but I'll just pin this right to the batting and the backing, and so I don't even have to monkey around with pinning it there. One thing that you need to watch out for when you're quilting is that if you get too close to the edge and you don't have enough backing, then a lot of times your sewing machine will hit into your bungee clamp, because a lot of these 9-inch throat machines have quite a wide base and they're really handy, but in this case they actually are almost more of a hindrance because they'll hit into your clamps. And so I recommend that you try not to have any less than probably about 3 inches or so of extra backing and batting. The backing's more important than the batting, but you just need to make sure that you have the extra so that you don't hit into your bungee clamps. Sometimes as you're quilting on your frame, you'll notice that you might have some extra fabric. Here Kathy is smoothing it out with her fingers as she works along and is attaching this quilt top to the back. She does this rather than pinning it, and it's a lot faster than using pins to attach it. This is a really good example of why it's so important that you learn to free motion quilt. In little borders like this, you're not going to be able to use a pantograph pattern or stipple or do any of those things. You want to be able to have a fill pattern that will do the job and make it look great. Every now and again you need to use some pins to help hold everything down. Kathy uses a pounce and a stencil so that when she quilts little blocks like this one, she'll be able to keep everything lined up. Normally we would have had our quilt back be a little wider so our bungee clamp wouldn't be in the way. So we needed to stop and then remove the bungee clamp and then carefully finish stitching. Kathy is going to start this border, and you may wonder, well, why didn't she do that border in the first place? Well, part of that was because of the color of the thread that she had. she wanted to use the same color in some different areas of her quilt. So you want to plan out what colors you're going to be using and when to use them and in what areas. We want to speed it up some.
Yeah, but I might have to stop it. Every time you hit the on and off, it hits the speed.
Yeah. With the speed control, you do have that problem that you might bump the knob and change the speed. If you have the Sure Stitch stitch regulator, then you can avoid that altogether. One problem that you might run into if you're just using scraps of batting is that you may have extra batting that you really don't need. In this case, it was just as easy for Kathy to trim it off and get it out of the way. Sometimes you'll need to remove your bungee clamp so that you can quilt along the edge, but it's always better to just have the quilt back wide enough so that the clamp doesn't get in the way. The tri-corner leaf has 3 leaves, and it is a perfect way to fill a triangle. You'll notice that Kathy can move from one of the triangles right over to the next one without stopping. When you're quilting, the more you have to start and stop, then the longer it's going to take, and also the harder it's going to be. You really want your quilting to be able to flow, and by choosing designs that will allow you to flow through your quilt, you'll just have better continuity through your quilt, and it'll just be a lot more fun. It's really nice to be able to do a design like this that you've done so many times that you really don't have to think about it. If you try this for the first time and it's a little difficult, don't worry, it'll get easier. If you notice that your quilt is bouncing a lot, you can put your hand on the quilt like Kathy does, and that helps to steady it, and there's less vibration on your quilt. This rose is one of Kathy's trademark designs that she does, and it's a great way to fill up a block. You just start in the center of your block and then work your way around, and then she'll have a little leaf that goes out into the corners. Really a simple rose, but the effect can be just really nice. So she likes using this one a lot. You'll notice that as Kathy quilts on this, she'll keep stopping, and then she'll push the needle up button, grab her thread, and then push that button again to get the needle to go down, and then it helps her bring up her bobbin thread. She cuts it, and that's all you have to do. It doesn't leave any tails on the back side of the quilt, and lets you start over in the next part, you have your bobbin thread up on top, you have your top thread, and you can clip them. So she'll quilt just a little bit, and then she'll cut those threads, and you don't have to back tack or anything like that, because the quilt's not going to come apart. The thread is already locked inside. Here she's going to do another rose and do those leaves, and it really is easy as you practice and you get better at it, and it's a great way to fill up those blocks, especially when they're on point like these are. With those two center blocks done, now she can move over and do her tri-corner leaf. When changing thread colors, it's easier to put the spool on or the cone, tie it to the other thread that you had, and pull it through. If you have a big enough needle, you can actually pull it right through the eye of the needle, but if not, you can clip it and then thread it in manually. We hope that you've had as much fun watching part 1 of quilting a wall hanging as we've had making it. We want you to be able to become a great quilter and know that if you try, practice, and don't worry about failing, that you'll be able to do some really awesome quilting. Until part 2, we'll see you later.